I think an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths, and that it's pretty surprising how little preparedness there is for it. Now, it's tricky because this is a global problem, so how do countries work together? Which countries should put up what resources? And every aspect of it, the resources to go engage in the affected countries, the allocation decisions. As we've seen various flu scares come along, we haven't had a super good response. So the paradigmatic examples are smallpox for an intentionally caused thing, that there was a simulation called Dark Winter that didn't come out very well, i.e. smallpox scored 1 and humanity scored 0. Flu epidemics, where we always talk about the potential recurrence of a 1917 like Spanish flu problem, and then Ebola, which although it was much smaller, there was some luck involved in that. Because it wasn't spread through respiratory contact, the reproductive rate was a lot lower, and it was basically people who were sick or dead who were doing most of the transmission. And so through a lot of heroic effort and a little bit of luck, it stayed under control and was largely contained to the 3 countries. Zika is still recent enough that the understanding of, okay, should we have seen it sooner? Even understanding what the steady state case looks like in terms of immunogenicity, why it showed up in South America and didn't show up in Africa. I know people are hard at work trying to answer these questions. So the lessons from that one, I'm not trying to minimize that one at all, but I think they're less clear than from Ebola. I think it's too bad in a way that we had to have these epidemics to get us to move, but the timing in terms of the science, the recognition that epidemics don't respect borders, and so whether you're looking at this through a humanitarian lens or a purely domestic lens, these are investments that should be made. I think this is a very positive step.
Friday night at 9:24. Now, Gloria and my usual routine is we go to bed early and listen to a couple of messages by Brother Hagin, watch the 700 Club, by 10:30, turn the light out. Well, we had just listened to Brother Hagin, that first message, and suddenly the word of the Lord came to me. So I jumped up, got my notepad and wrote it down. 9:24. This disease called COVID-19 will be over much sooner than you think. Christian people all over this country praying have overwhelmed it. Give me all the glory, saith the Spirit of grace. And many, many people will come to know me through it. I'm still Lord over this nation. I'm on the throne, and faith in me changes things. Glory to God.
2027, it will be over. By the end of this month, whether we like it or not, no matter medicine they might have producing to cure whatever, it will go the way it come. If it is not medicine that brought this to the war, medicine can.
A lot of people are wondering about the coronavirus, COVID-19, in the Bible, whether this is possibly the beginning of the end or whether this fulfills some biblical prophecy about the return of Christ. And so I wanted just to show you a quick thing about it. In Matthew 24, Jesus was giving a sermon, a talk to his disciples about the signs of his second coming and the signs of the destruction of Jerusalem. And in this chapter, you find, well, let's start in verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences, that is, diseases, and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Now, a lot of people look at verse 7 and they say, look at this. This describes the world today very much so. Nation rising against nation, all the wars and rumors of wars. Kingdom against kingdom, famines, right? There are many places around the world where people are starving to death, even today, while we live in the lap of luxury. And pestilences, these various diseases, viruses, plagues that are spreading around. Pestilences, some people say, look at this coronavirus, this COVID-19, this pandemic that's shutting down much of the world. Is this the pestilence that it's speaking of? And earthquakes in diverse places. Many, many earthquakes. Many earthquakes, killing many people in these days. So people will look at that verse 7, and they'll say, is this it? And the key to that, whether coronavirus, COVID-19, is indeed this pestilence of the last days, which Jesus was speaking of. Verse 8 provides some insight into that. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Sorrows, that word in the Greek means literally the pain of childbirth. Many versions of the Bible, many translations translate that not as sorrows, but all these are the beginning of birth pangs or birth pains. That's what that means. And how do we read into, how do we interpret the beginning of birth pains? Well, if you've ever gone through a childbirth, or if you've witnessed a childbirth, if you have children, you'll know exactly how birth pains go. They start out mild, and as time goes on, these birth pains, these contractions, as it were, they become more and more intense and more frequent, closer and closer together. And that is exactly how all of these signs will be. Earthquakes have always happened. Wars have always happened. Pestilences, plagues, diseases have always happened. The difference is that if you zoom out and look at the timeline, you will see that there is a rapid increase in both severity and in frequency. They're becoming much more intense and much more rapid. This is true with earthquakes. This is true with wars. This is true with pestilences. So yes, coronavirus in that sense is certainly a part of this prophecy of signs of the end times. It is one of the pestilences that we will see with more and more frequency and more intensity as birth pains, until finally they lead up to that day when Jesus Christ shall return.